That night I didn't sleep. I just sat in the dark, the city traffic a low, mocking hum outside my window. It wasn't the being fired part that killed me. I could handle getting let go. That's business. It was the way they did it. The smug look on David Chen's face. The casual, surgical strike. I remember the glass conference room. Sun pouring in, making everything look sterile and expensive. Me, 22, still feeling like the new kid sitting across from David, the CTO, the guy I'd idolized. He didn't even use a full sentence. He just tapped the laminated printout of my project proposal. My baby. The app I'd poured 3 months of 80-hour weeks into developing during my internship. It was a platform for hyper-local skill sharing. Think Uber, but for neighbors tutoring math or teaching guitar or fixing a leaky faucet. I called it Nexus. He tapped it. His perfectly manicured finger leaving a momentary print on the glossy paper. Then he looked up, not at me but slightly over my shoulder at some invisible point of success only he could see. "It's too ambitious, Alex." That's all he said. Too ambitious. I felt the blood drain from my face. My heart, which had been pounding with anticipation. This was my presentation, my shot. Just stopped dead. I swallowed. The dryness in my throat felt like sandpaper. "David, with all due respect, I ran the projections. The market is wide open for decentralized gig economy tools. The beta test got incredible engagement." He finally met my eyes. They weren't angry. That would have been easier. They were bored. "Alex, you're smart. You're fast. But you're thinking like a dreamer, not a developer in a Series C startup." Series C. The big leagues. The part where innovation stops and execution takes over. He pushed the paper, my Nexus proposal, toward me. "We hire people to build our roadmap, not to write a new one. Your job was to optimize the back end for our social media platform. You spent 3 months coding something totally outside the scope. But this is the next step. The next big thing. You said you wanted disruption." My voice was too loud. Desperate. He leaned back in his leather chair. The sound of the material stretching was the only other noise in the room. "Disruption is expensive, Alex. And risk management starts with knowing when to fire the people who think they know better than the founders." Then the coup de grace. The line that didn't just fire me, it humiliated me. He actually smiled. A thin, cold, professional smile. "You're thinking too big for us, kid. You're disruptive, all right. You're disrupting our peace of mind." The security guard was waiting outside the door. Already. They didn't even let me clear my desk. Just escorted me to the elevator, my heart pounding a rhythm of pure, unadulterated shame. I walked out of that skyscraper and into the brutal midday sun, clutching the folded printout of Nexus, feeling like a total, irreversible fool. I got back to my tiny, overpriced studio apartment. The one I shared with a constant, low-grade smell of old takeout and the ghost of better financial decisions. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall, the laptop still in its backpack. A fire was building in my chest. Not sadness. Not really. It was rage. The kind of quiet, internal rage that makes you go cold instead of hot. Too ambitious. That phrase became my anchor. My insult. My mantra. I was supposed to go call my parents. Tell them the internship didn't work out. I was supposed to start polishing my resume for the next application. I couldn't. I just stared at the wall. The wall was thin. I could hear my neighbor's TV, the fake laughter from a sitcom. That noise usually drove me crazy. Now, it was just background to the screaming in my head. David Chen and his team sitting up there in their glass tower, making millions by playing it safe, optimizing the boring, already built thing. And me? I was on the floor, fired for trying to build something new. I opened the laptop. Not to apply for jobs. I opened the code editor. For the next week, the apartment transformed. The blinds were drawn. The air conditioning ran non-stop. The only light was the harsh, blue glow of the screen. I didn't call anyone. I didn't leave. I lived on lukewarm coffee and stale cereal, the taste of which I barely registered. My landlord, old Mr. Patel, knocked once about the rent, but I just yelled through the door that I was on a conference call. He mumbled and left. I wasn't coding Nexus anymore. I was coding revenge. It wasn't about the money. Not yet. It was about proving David Chen wrong. About taking his casual dismissal and turning it into a monument of my own success. Every line of clean, efficient Python. Every user interface that snapped into place. Every elegant database query. It was a middle finger to the glass ceiling I just hit. The original Nexus proposal was good. The new one, the one built on fury and sleeplessness, was obsessive. I stripped away the unnecessary features. I simplified the user flow until it was buttery smooth. I realized the biggest flaw in my presentation to David was the complexity. I was so focused on building a full, perfect platform, I forgot to build a simple, irresistible tool. The new focus: hyperlocal tutoring. Forget fixing sinks. Focus on the single high-value, high-trust interaction. Connecting a parent who needs a calculus tutor tonight with a qualified college student 2 blocks away. I renamed it. Not Nexus. Too corporate. I called it the Spark. The rhythm was brutal. Sleep became a punishment, a waste of precious coding time. I'd crash for 3 hours on the floor, wake up with a jolt of panic and rush back to the keyboard, my fingers already tingling with the next solution. I started seeing the world in code. When I finally went out for groceries, my fridge was a tomb. I saw the people walking by. The frustrated-looking mom talking on the phone. The college kid with headphones on, carrying a heavy backpack. I thought, she needs help. He needs cash. The Spark connects them. Seamlessly. Securely. The project was becoming real, but my life was falling apart. My bank account was bleeding out. The severance pay had been a joke. 3 weeks. It vanished faster than an ice cube in the Sahara. I started selling things. First, the non-essentials. My expensive mechanical keyboard. My gaming console. Then, the emotional items. The vintage Fender guitar my dad gave me. That hurt. That was a piece of my past I was selling just to buy another week of ramen and internet access. The shame of it was a lead weight. I had to stop taking calls from my parents. My dad, bless him, would always ask, "So how's the office, son? Are you learning a lot from David Chin?" I couldn't tell him. I couldn't shatter the image of his ambitious, successful son climbing the corporate ladder. I'd wait until 1 a.m., send a quick text. "Hey, crushed with work, all good. Love you." The lying felt worse than the debt. The debt was just numbers. The lie was a betrayal of their trust. Then came the eviction notice. It wasn't a surprise. I hadn't paid rent in 6 weeks. I never thought I'd see my name on the eviction notice. But there it was, taped to my door, fluttering like a cruel joke in the stale apartment air. It was official. Homelessness was now a known variable. A week. I had 7 days before the locks changed. I looked at the notice, then back at the laptop. This was the ultimate test. The fire under my ass. I could have taken one of the dozens of depressing, low-paying remote jobs I'd been ignoring. I could have moved home, swallowed my pride, and lived in my old bedroom. But the eviction notice and David Chen's face merged into one image in my mind. If I stop now, I lose to both of them. I worked faster. I didn't care about the noise outside anymore. Or the hunger. Or the smell. The world had narrowed down to the screen. The code had to be perfect. The launch had to be flawless. I set a hard date. 3 days before the final eviction deadline. The launch wasn't a party. It wasn't a press release. It was me sitting on a milk crate. I'd already packed up the rest of the furniture, uploading the final build to the App Store and Google Play. My hands were shaking. Not from excitement. From exhaustion and terror. I had spent my absolute last $200 on server hosting for the first month. If this failed, I was sleeping on a park bench with a dead laptop. I hit publish. It felt like dropping a stone into a dark, bottomless well. No splash. No echo. Just silence. I didn't expect immediate success. But I expected something. I opened the analytics dashboard. The first hour, 0 users. The second hour, 2 users. One was probably me logging in on my backup phone. The other? Maybe a bot. The third hour, 1 user deleted the app. I finally broke. Not a grand, cinematic breakdown. Just a slow, silent leak. Tears rolled down my face, stinging my stubble. I wasn't crying over the failure of the app. I was crying over the loss of the last chance. I had staked everything, my dignity, my savings, my apartment, my relationship with my family, on this one single, beautiful, perfectly coded Hail Mary pass. And it had hit the dirt. I closed the laptop. My head fell into my hands. The shame was complete. I had been rightly fired. David Chin was right. I was a dreamer. I was too ambitious. I was a failure. I sat there for 20 minutes, planning the call to my parents. "Dad, I need to come home. I messed up." I picked up my phone. Then I saw it. A notification. Not from the analytics dashboard. A push notification on the test version of the app. New booking, calculus tutoring. 7 p.m. 2 blocks away. My heart surged, a frantic electric shock. I quickly checked the payment system. Pending $40. $40. Not enough to pay the rent. But $40 was real. $40 meant one connection worked. I looked at the booking details. It was a mother, Sarah M. desperate for a tutor for her high school son. And the tutor? A guy named Ben, a computer science major I'd managed to rope in from a local college with a promise of high rates and flexible hours. I messaged Ben instantly. Check your app. You have a booking. Go. Then I messaged Sarah. Thank you for using the Spark. Please let me know if you need anything at all. I didn't sleep that night either. But this time it was different. I watched the dashboard like a hawk. The meeting happened. Ben marked it as complete. Sarah left a 5-star rating. And she booked again for the next night. The engine hadn't fired a rocket. It had just coughed to life, one tiny, fragile sputter. But it was moving. The next day, the number of users went from 3 to 9. The day after, 24. It wasn't exponential growth. It was slow, steady, organic growth. People weren't downloading it because of an ad. They were downloading it because Sarah M. told her friend Lisa. And Lisa told her neighbor Ken. It worked because I had focused on one thing: trust. Every tutor had been personally vetted by me, a quick, panicked video call, a check of their college transcript. The trust was there. The payment was secure. The location was safe. The eviction deadline was looming. It was Tuesday. The locksmith was coming on Friday. I had earned $380 in platform fees. Not nearly enough. I made the call. Not to my parents. To Mr. Patel. He answered, his voice tired. Alex, I don't know what to tell you. I have a family who needs that rent. I took a deep breath. Mr. Patel. I know. I'm not asking for another week. I'm asking for a partnership. Silence. What on earth are you talking about? I pitched him. Fast, focused, passionate. My app is taking off in the neighborhood. It's for tutoring. I need 2 weeks. I can pay half the rent now and the rest in 2 weeks, plus an extra $500 for the trouble. Not a loan. A guaranteed payment. I just need time to scale the user base. It was a huge gamble. I was literally betting the entire future of the Spark on a 2-week window. He hesitated. Long, agonizing silence. You've always been a good kid, Alex. A little messy maybe, but honest. You'll pay the half now. Transferring it right now. Fine. 2 weeks. Not a day more. And I want the full $500. You've got it, Mr. Patel? I hung up, shaking again. I had just bought myself 14 days. It was the smallest, most terrifying victory of my life. I hadn't won $1 million contract. I just dodged a bullet from my landlord. But it was proof. I could negotiate. I could adapt. I was an entrepreneur, not just a coder. The next 2 weeks were a blur of pure hustle. I wasn't coding anymore. I was marketing. I printed out terrible, cheap flyers and stapled them to every lamppost in a 5-block radius. I talked to every single person I saw with a backpack. I targeted the local community Facebook groups, the parent groups, the college student groups. I didn't talk about disruption or venture capital. I talked about solving a problem. Your kid needs help now. You need cash now. We make it happen. The growth exploded. When you solve a desperate, immediate problem, people don't need marketing. They need relief. By the end of the 2 weeks, the platform had 400 active users and was processing $8,000 in transactions a week. My 10% cut was $800 a week. I paid Mr. Patel the full amount, plus the extra $500 a day early. He looked at the transaction on his phone. He didn't say anything. He just nodded slowly, a hint of respect in his tired eyes. Keep going, Alex, he mumbled. You have a good thing here. For months later, the Spark was regional. 700 tutors, 10,000 users, and a revenue stream that made me feel dizzy. I still lived in the same tiny apartment. But now I could afford to lease an actual office space, though I preferred to work from my kitchen table. It kept me grounded. The revenge, which had been the initial fuel, had faded into the background. I was too busy building. The joy of seeing a 5-star review, of reading a parent's testimonial about their kid passing a difficult exam, was a much more potent drug than anger. I hadn't told my parents. I was still scared of shattering the fragile equilibrium. Then came the call. An unknown number. I answered, multitasking, looking at a server load chart. Hello? Alex? It's David Chen. My blood went cold again. The sheer sound of his voice, the arrogant, familiar tone, sent a jolt of pure memory straight to my gut. David, I'm surprised you still have my number. He chuckled. A dry, business-like sound. I keep tabs on smart people, Alex. Especially the ones who think too big. I've seen what you're doing with the Spark. Impressive. Very focused execution. I waited. I knew where this was going. We're building out a new vertical, he continued. Hyperlocal services. The founders and I, we were talking. We realized we missed a clear opportunity. You didn't miss it. You built it. Silence stretched across the line, heavy with unsaid history. We want to acquire the Spark, he finally said. Name your number, Alex. We can give you a comfortable exit, bring you back on as a VP of product. You can finally lead the team that integrates your vision into a major player. He was offering me redemption. A chance to walk back into that glass tower, not as a nervous intern but as a conquering founder. The revenge was served. It was hot and it was right there on a silver platter. I closed my laptop. My hands were perfectly steady. I looked out my window. Not at the skyscraper in the distance, but at the little, independent coffee shop across the street where one of my most popular tutors, Sarah, often met her students. I thought about the night I was fired. The way he dismissed my dream as an inconvenience to his peace of mind. I took a breath, and I gave him a soft, slow smile that he couldn't see but I could feel. David, that's a generous offer. But I appreciate your feedback from 6 months ago. My feedback. You said I was thinking too big for your company. Alex, I was wrong. That was a mistake and I'm correcting it now. We want you back. See, I think you were right, David. My voice was calm, clear, and perfectly firm. You're a company that executes a roadmap. You're built for stability. I'm built for disruption. We can be disruptive. We can inject the capital. We can scale this globally. You can, but you won't. Because the Spark isn't just code, David. It's built on my name, my trust, and my hunger. It's built on the exact kind of risk that would give your Series C investors heartburn. I paused for the final punch. The quietest word of all. I'm not interested in an exit, David. I'm interested in winning. Winning what? He spat, finally losing his professional calm. The market. The future. My freedom. You'll regret this, Alex. We can crush you. We have the resources. Maybe. But you'll have to build it, David. And I can guarantee you the guy who builds it for you will be a safe executor, not a hungry dreamer. You've already fired the dreamer. I didn't wait for his reply. I just pressed the red end call button. The line went dead. The silence that followed was not the heavy silence of shame. It was the silence of victory. I didn't become rich that day. I became free. I finally called my parents that weekend. I didn't lie. I didn't frame it as an immediate success story. I told them about the firing, the shame, the eviction notice, and the fear. I told them about selling the guitar just to buy server space. I told them about Mr. Patel and the 2-week gamble. There was a long silence on the line. I thought they would be disappointed. Instead, my dad just said, his voice thick, "Son, why didn't you tell us? We would have helped." I know, Dad. But this wasn't about money. This was about myself. I had to prove I wasn't a mistake. I had to prove that thinking too big was my superpower, not my weakness. I heard my mom crying softly in the background. Well, my dad sniffled, clearing his throat. I guess you proved it. I'm so proud of you, Alex. More proud of the struggle than the success. That was the real victory. The healing of that internal wound. I didn't sell the Spark. I raised a small, strategic seed round from an independent firm that believed in the hunger, not just the numbers. My revenge came not in the form of an acquisition check, but in the relentless, simple fact that the Spark continued to grow, quickly overshadowing the boring, safe platforms in its niche. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the ignition spark. Rejection is the crucible. It burns away everything you thought you were supposed to be, leaving only the pure, hard core of who you actually are. I learned that the most dangerous place to be is not in the struggle, but in the comfort of a job that limits your vision. Don't let anyone put a cap on your ambition. Don't let them tell you you're thinking too big. Because if your dream is too big for their table, the answer isn't to shrink the dream. The answer is to build your own damn table. And that, I realized, is worth more than all the money in that glass tower combined. It is freedom. It is purpose. It is everything.